For me, I think the concerns are innings, right? I kind of feel like first of all, he never really threw. He was never a huge innings pitch guy before because he's dealt with multiple injuries. The Dodgers have no reason to push him back. I kind of feel like 100, 110 innings, like 110 innings feels kind of safe for me with Otani.
Hmm.
And as you have mentioned on this podcast or other, I don't remember where you said it, but Otani will also probably not. He won't go on the IL because he is going to hit. So you're always going to have to keep him on your bench. So you're going to get probably
Yeah.
110 innings of a guy you can't IL. He has to be on your roster. To me, that is problematic. On top of just the general, hey, what's he going to look like coming off Tommy John concerns, and so that's
Yeah.
why I have him low.
The whole idea of Otani is, let's say you were getting Paul Skeens, and if you were drafting Paul Skeens right now, I and you knew you had to wait or whatever for 2 months, and you're going to get those 130 innings, like where do you draft him, right? And that's kind of where my head is with Otani a bit. It's frustrating as anything, and I put him after that Holly tier. I actually call it my thing Hollies, but I'm scared. And Hollies are like your stable strikeout inning guy with ratios that you're not going to drop and everything, but like it's not exciting. It's like, oh, okay, fine. Um, so I put him after that because I feel like that's more locked value. And we're getting into the groups of, is it actually locked value? Like, truly, are we
Right.
okay with this? That's why Otani's here, because yes, I do feel like he will help me. But right, the thing is, the quality per inning when you do get him is value, is productive.
Sure.
And I really love valuing that. I love just knowing that I'm going to get something out of this. But right, how much is it? And at the end of the day, when Otani begins actually being in the rotation, where do you think I'm going to have him on the list?
If when he actually starts in the rotation,
Yes.
I think you'll inside the top 25 feels fair because I don't know how deep he's going into games, right? They may
Mhm.
limit him to
Sure.
like
Yeah.
5 innings.
Yeah.
And they've said basically they're going to go to a 6 man when he's in the rotation. So then that means you're getting fewer starts per week.
Hmm.
So you're dealing with fewer starts per week, fewer innings per start, which will cap the overall upside. But I think once he's fully in the rotation, somewhere in the top 25, 30 feels
Yeah, that
25 feels fair.
sounds right. I probably would say top 20. I think he's gonna get the Aces gonna ace label. And Aces gonna ace is pretty much just saying, like, yeah, you're gonna be great for my teams. I mean, even thinking 5 innings, it's gonna be well worth your time. Do what you want with Otani, everyone. I'm wrestling with it of what I would when I would actually do it. My instinct as a player on my own, I would probably not go for it because I like that roster spot and I feel that I should be more capable of filling it with something that's valuable throughout the entire time because that's me. And maybe I should be doing that with my rankings as well, theoretically, but it's also because I don't know, I spend all day on this. This is literally all I do. I don't do any other rankings. So like I should be able to do that, you know? It's tough. It's really difficult. And do whatever you guys want with Otani.
Your number 42 pitcher now is Hunter Green. Um, I've talked a lot about Hunter Green, so I'll just briefly share some thoughts. You can jump in. I mentioned Hunter
Please
Green in
go ahead.
my first pitch Arizona presentation, which I also did for PitchCon, which you can find up on the YouTube channel. There's this narrative that because Hunter Green had a good year and because he started throwing a splitter, that the splitter was the reason that Hunter Green had a good year, and it's just not. It just does not appear to be accurate based on anything that we've seen, other than the fact that he added another pitch and maybe that kept hitters off of his two primary pitches, and so he was a little more successful. The splitter did not miss many bats. The splitter did not have a good put away rate, so it wasn't good in two strike counts. So Hunter Green was throwing the splitter early in counts to keep hitters off the fastball. But the splitter really wasn't. It didn't grade out well. It didn't have good stats on its own. It just wasn't a particularly good pitch. Hunter Green added extension on the fastball, and the fastball performed much better. But also, the fastball had pretty ridiculous hit luck, which suggests that he got a little bit lucky on the fastball. But I think Hunter Green made improvements to the fastball, which helped him pitch a little better last year. But it was not because he became this different pitcher with this new pitch. And so I think Hunter Greene is basically the same pitcher that we have always kind of thought he is. And you have him at 42, and I have him at 46, and I'm happy to get him, but I won't because somebody's considering him an ace in waiting and going to take him ridiculously early.
I mean, so I really wrestle with it because the ICR marks, the contact allowed, is suggesting success, right? They dropped a ton on the fastball and the slider, which did result in lower BABIPs as well, right? And it's what's interesting is that you see a 5.7 hit per nine in those 26 games started. And let me tell you guys right now, if you see under a 6 hit per nine, you go, you should instantly just know that's not repeatable. Okay. It really is not at all. Even underneath 7, you should be like, is that though? Just to give a reference point, 7.4 and 8.9 for the previous 2 years for Hunter Greene. And, I'm going to do one of the things that I dislike the most to do, which is take 2 seasons worth of a metric and just average the two.
Blend them together.
I hate doing this because that's not really what you should be doing. That said, the ICR and the BABIPs all follow the same trends in both 2023 and 2024 to link to the hit per nine, right? When we talk about ICR, we talk about BABIP. It's all about, yeah, but is he allowing hits? Like, that's the whole point of it. They all were linked. So it makes sense. If you have a really high ICR and a low BABIP, you should be questioning it. But if you have a 97th percentile ICR rate, which means that Hunter Greene is allowing as much weak contact when contact happens, which isn't as frequently as others too,
Right.
then it should have this low 93rd percentile BABIP, and thus you should definitely have a 90th percentile hit per nine. And the question I'm asking is really, well, you say a lot, regression doesn't come necessarily in just, oh, it's luck. It's also regression of skills in those results itself, based on,
Right.
are you going to execute that fastball at that exact moment the right way all the time to get that lower contact rate, right? The worst ideal contact. And this is really why the home runs go down. Hunter Greene had a .72 homer per nine last year. It was half of his 2023 homer per nine of 1.53, right? Homer fly ball rate went down more than half. I mean, doesn't surprise you. He's in Cincinnati. I don't think that's sustainable. That just doesn't, I just can't put all of that together in the right way. And I am going to at least give him some credit that I think he came into his own a little bit more with his fastball and his slider. But it might surprise you guys to know that he had a 16% put away rate previously on his fastball. It's like 22%. It's not like the biggest thing against right-handers, but even sliders, 16% put away rate last year against right-handers. It's like, wait, well, hold on, what? That's like really not, like, none of these are ridiculous in this way. Against lefties, though, at 26%, that doesn't seem right. That seems like a little too high. So I don't know. I see Hunter Greene as a strikeout guy. I see him as
Yep.
someone who still has a 9% walk rate, and that really shouldn't go away. I see his hit per nine going up. I see his homer per nine going up. And I also worry about how much we're going to see of him. I still think about that fantastic Eno table of the top 10 velocities in baseball
Yep.
and how all of them got hurt. And so did Hunter Greene for a limited amount of time. But I think his health risk is as high as anyone, you really should say, based on his track record, too. And you throw all that together, and it's like, yeah, it's risky. And I feel a little safer with the other guys ahead of him. But I could absolutely see Hunter Greene having a phenomenal season. It's very possible considering how well that fastball and slider performed last year. So good luck to him. I'm just not going to chance it.
Yes. Agreed. I'm more likely to chance it based on draft cost, at least. With the number 43 starter, Carlos Rodon, who is going significantly, well, not significantly, but going a few rounds later in drafts than Hunter Greene right now. We've chatted about Rodon a bunch. This is a guy who, when he finally realized he couldn't blow the fastball by people in the same way that he used to, and started leaning into the changeup over the final, I believe it was 16 starts of the season, became just a drastically different pitcher. We have seen him. My only concern was, like, we've seen him dial up and back the changeup usage, and that was why we talked about him when we went over my top 150. But I moved Rodon up since then. He's my number 39th ranked starter.
Oh,
I don't see any reason why Rodon would go away from the changeup now. And so if we get what we got from Rodon at the end of last season, that's a really solid starting pitcher on a good team that's has great context for wins. So I'm in on Rodon this year.
Oh man, wait, do you have him higher than Clark Schmidt now?
I do. Yeah, I
Oh,
have Clark. I kept Clark Schmidt at 55, and Rodon is up
okay.
to 39 now.
Oh man, you're higher than me now.
Yeah,
uh, I mean, look, I think you mentioned it too. Just the innate volatility of Rodon and over the years. It's just like you can't just get settled in. And there are a lot of times. Look, this is all vibes. You want to say, right? The
sure.
list is always going to be vibes. I've heard like a lot of feedback on this of saying like, oh, people want more statistics, not like what it was the projection base behind it or whatever. And like, I don't, if you want those kind of things, there are some amazing projection systems, but they all tell you. Ariel Cohen, I went on Beat the Shit podcast. Actually, I think the first episode's out now, if not part two as well, saying projection systems are bad at starting pitchers. And
Yes,
so I can't. I'm not going to sit here and just give you like a list of ERA or PLV or something like that and call it a day. It's about I got to have some vibes in here with all the stats. And the vibes for me of Carlos Rodon is that he's not someone who just has a thing that it works and it always works.
right.
And he's always constantly figuring things out. Like this fastball is good this day. It's not. The slider, yes, no. The changeup was a really big factor last year. And I want to say, like, cool, it's a good situation. And he should get 25 to 27% strikeouts and should be a good enough whip and all this stuff. But I can absolutely see him having a 4 ERA with like a 125 whip this year.
For
Like
sure.
that's within the realm of possibility.
Yes,
And also getting hurt again. So I wrestled with this and also with Kodai Senga of like, these are guys who we likely will see as hollies that are just always there. You don't drop them and they just produce throughout the year. And you're not really going to pump your fist in the air at the end of the year because it's not going to be like a 2.5 ERA or something like that or some
right.
absurdity. But I don't I don't really want to draft them, you know? It's such
I
a
get it.
weird situation because I don't feel like
I,
I'll ever really know how I'm doing with Rodon until the season ends.
but I think yes, I agree. I think you will find that where he's going in drafts. Like I'll just look
Mm.
right now in the last 20
Oh, absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah.
of the last 20 RotoWire online championships, which is a 12-team league in the NFBC format. Rodon is going pick 133. They don't
Oh,
separate by starting pitcher. We did on the sheet with
our
Kyle with
PL
11 to
Pro app,
30.
guys. You got to use
Uh,
it. It's the
yes,
best.
but Rodon, the 55th overall starting pitcher. Interestingly, right after him is Jared Jones, Jack Flaherty, Kodai Senga. So everybody, they feel all like in this
I'll take
same
Jones all day. I'll
range.
put it this way, at least for my teams
But
and 12 teams right now. We're at that point. Sorry to interrupt you, Eric. Keep going.
I was just gonna say, but Hunter Green is going pick 94. So
Oh,
Hunter
wow.
Green with an ADP of 94, Rodon with an
Can't do it.
ADP of 133. So that's almost 40 picks later.
What's so funny is like what I'm getting at is my 12 teamers. If you guys aren't joining me on the stream, by the way, the playback.tv/pitchel stream, you're doing it wrong because we all just talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you guys have questions about guys, that's what I do. I just answer your questions. And um, someone asked, like, all right, Nick, you usually say you want 4 starters inside the top blank, and then you kind of have your canvas to create the rest of your staff. Where is it this year? And I would say it's right around 40. Um, and I'm probably gonna have Jones inside of it, or like right at the border of it. But what's so funny about it is the way I structure 12 teamers. I'm so I'm very anti-closer. I know, just wait and saves all that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's just one of the worst bets you can make inside the top 10 rounds or so. It's just it changes so much. And if you just listen to Rick Graham or Greg Jewett, like these guys know what they're talking about. They're amazing at what they do. Just follow them and you'll be fine. You're 12 teamers. But just go hitters for the first 6 rounds. The value there is just so much higher. And what happens is because we're talking about all these guys, we're talking about these guys that I've ranked in the 42, 43. Like, I understand why anyone would rank them in the top 30, but I have them here because there's so many. So that means that around rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm just going ham
Right.
and I'm getting all of these, right? So that means that at 130, which is like the 11th round or so, uh, theoretically, that could be me getting Carlos Rodon. But what I'm finding is that I'm able to get other guys instead and be more aggressive on those starters that I don't feel like I'm at a point where I want to add another starter and it's Rodon. Does that make sense? Like I'm at a point that I already have 4, and then I would want to take a higher ceiling throw because I already have the 4 that I really believe in. Where I don't feel like I'd be able to make such a good decision in season with Rodon. But that might not be the case. I might be able to get him as my SB6 or something like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, all right, I'll take that. I'll go ahead. So it really does shape out when I do these mock drafts more and more. These rankings get shifted in that way to resonate with me of, okay, cool. No, these are the guys I'm actually going to be going for.
This next pitcher, a little bit earlier when we were discussing Carlos Rodon, but your number 44 starter is Kodai Senga. So much of this is just health related. I know that
Yeah.
you were a big proponent of him adding the cutter at the end of 2023, which and kind of leaning into it a little bit more, which really kind of helped him kick up a notch.
I
Was
mean,
it
he
the
had the
cutter?
cutter the entire year. I just
But didn't
discovered it.
he?
I didn't
But didn't
realize that this is what the secret to Kodai Senga
I
was.
thought he leaned into it more in the second half of the year. I could be wrong because it's
Oh, no, you
almost
might be
2 years
right about
ago.
that.
But I
You absolutely could be right about that one. I just remember in reflection, be like, "What is it about cutters? This fastball is not? Oh my gosh, this cutter just doesn't get hit. Oh, I get it. He throws so hard and it's all around the zone, and nobody knows of this four seamer or the cutter, and that allows him to get like 70% strikes in the cutter, and then the splitter is just always there in 2 strike counts and it destroys them.
yeah.
I So yeah, it's all about health. Exactly what you said. As long as he's healthy and good, and it does look like there might be a setback or maybe not. They think he'll be okay.
Yes.
Is the whole idea. He didn't really finish his rehab when he showed up in the playoffs, Kodai Senga. So it's a little bit different of a off season, but all signs are that Kodai Senga is good to go for the Mets. And in that case, you should be treating him like you did entering the season last year. And that was inside the top 30 starters, guys.
Yes.
So I don't know. I see a great strikeout guy with what should be a really good, like a 115 to 120 whip with a good ERA. Like that sounds really good to me.
Yeah. I
That's
I
what I
have
think.
him I have him 42 right now and could move him up as high as McClanahan with a healthy spring.
Mm,
Um, I will say it was true. 20% cutter usage in his first 2 months of the 2023 season. By July, he was up to 31% cutter usage.
beautiful. And how are you
Um,
finding out that information?
I could find out. I'm just looking at the Statcast pitch by month, but
What?
it's I listen. It's great on Pitcher List, but I it's just Statcast is a little bit. It's quicker. I like it.
Unbelievable. He
I
really
like
upped the usage, I would say, starting on the well, it's actually interesting. His first 4 starts were underneath 20%, and then on the 26th of April, he had a 31% usage start. 24, 21,
Well,
23,
you're going by
29,
game log. That's how I should do it on your
9,
list.
and
Yeah.
then exactly on June 4th, he threw 29%, and then only had 1 game, well, really 2 games underneath 23% after that.
Yeah.
So there's your answer. Oh, Eric. Thank you for helping us teach the masses about how
I know. And
powerful the
and
pitcher list player page is with their game log.
it's your number 45 starter, Ryan Pepiot. He is the last pitcher in your cherry bomb, but it's worse tier. And saw good improvements with Pepiot fastball upstairs last year. The secondaries didn't fully click consistently, moving to a minor league park. Going to be pitching outside in Florida in the summer where the ball will travel a lot. I get it. You and I were both higher on a few, some pairs of Tampa Bay pitchers who we'll get to later. And we both moved them down a little bit as we've gotten into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about right as you mentioned. Steinbrenner Field, his vert though is so good, and it's a little weird because in the Trop it's 1.5 inches extra vert.
Mm-hmm.
So take that with a grain of salt, a decent amount, but still he got over 3 inches extra vertical movement on his four seamer than expected. So it's still going to be at least an inch above, sorry, at least 2 inches above expected, which is still really good on that four seamer. In the negative by going to George Steinbrenner Field isn't the dimensions necessarily. It's about being outside in Florida,
Right.
which we saw with Dunedin, and how that allows balls to travel more, essentially. So that's the biggest concern. Just so everyone's clear, it would be a really bad park factor for Tampa Bay Rays pitchers, especially going from the Trop. So keep that in mind. But with Pepiot, he has this really good fastball that the Dodgers didn't utilize well enough, and I didn't realize it until it's kind of Later into the offseason, I regret it because I remember being on the phone call with Vlad Sedler, and he's like, "Oh man, should I be taking Pepe? What do you think about him?" And I said, "I'm not into this because it's just a good changeup, and that changeup was really bad, and like I'm not getting enough of the fastball." And then someone I remember putting out a tweet about it, and then someone said, "Why don't you like his fastball?" I was like, "Why don't I like his fastball?" He's not throwing it upstairs. He should be throwing it upstairs. Oh my gosh! And I realized all of a sudden the Rays started to do that, and I felt so stupid. So Ryan Pepiot, he also has like this changeup and slider. This was like an 80 grade changeup, but he just couldn't command it when he came up to the majors. He couldn't
Right.
control it anymore, and we've seen it get much better. It's not quite there yet, but it's almost like right there. Then you see a slider that I think is legit. It just again needs to be slightly more consistent. But then he also has his four seamer that I think is an absolute incredible foundation. And that's three pitches that should all be plus and effective. So it makes all the sense in the world to me. It's just, yeah, he's a little inconsistent, and it's going to George Steinbrenner Field, and it's the Rays who might limit him a bit. And it's just a little, I get a little bit of that ick, and it's, oh gosh, I don't like that feeling. So here's the vibes list, guys. That's why he's in this one where you're not going to drop Ryan Pepiot, but you're not quite as confident.
A little bit of that ick, just a little bit of the ick. I got it too. I moved him down. He's in my low 40s. So yeah, I'll happily take shares if he drops, but I'm not as excited as I was heading into the offseason.